back live in front of the Diddy trial, well, in front of the Diddy courthouse for the Diddy trial. Our morning check-in, as you guys know, we come to you live 7 a.m., 12 to 1, around that time. And of course, when court is adjourned for the day at around 3:30. Yesterday, we told you guys about the prosecution and the defense plan for the rest of the week. Some bombshell information. A lot of stuff going on. We may have a verdict. We may have a verdict at the end of the week. Yes, it is maybe coming to a close, maybe coming to an end. A lot of people thought it would go well into July. It is almost, 1 week left in June, and it might all be over. Good morning, Tori. Good morning, Leslie. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, Stacy. Good morning, what is that? Prophet Ilias. Good morning, Tez. Tez is always in the building. What up, Tez? Morning, Jessica. Hello from Napa Valley. Joyce. Shantae Johnson. What up? What up? All right, come on in. So I got my trusty Starbucks. I'm not even a big coffee drinker, but getting up this early in the morning, every morning this month, has got me drinking Starbucks, all right? So yesterday, like I told you, I'm gonna start off today how I ended yesterday. I'm gonna give you guys what the prosecution and the defense's plan is for the rest of the week, which I think is very, very, very important. And then I have some insider information. Yesterday, I ended off the live with saying that I'm sticking around. I have some meetings. I'm going to talk with some people. I was able to secure Diddy's defense strategy, okay? From what I've heard from some inside sources, what Diddy and his defense team is going to say. Yesterday, we were one of the first to break to you that Diddy is not putting on a defense. There'll be no witnesses, no witnesses. FYI, that is the plan. Still just make sure that there could be some surprises. Even with my inside information, you never know what could happen. So I just want to put an asterisk on that. But yesterday when we told you guys at around 3:30, 4 o'clock, the defense didn't, I just want to make something clear, the defense didn't necessarily come out and say we're not going to put any witnesses on, but according to the schedule that they planned out, we could tell and we can come under the assumption that there will be no witnesses, all right? So that's why yesterday when I was reporting it, I let you guys know that, and most people kind of picked up on it a couple hours after, where it was along the lines of like, oh yeah, actually, that's true. They didn't say that they're gonna put on a witness, so we just have to assume that there are no witnesses, okay? I'll walk you guys through that. So yes, I'm gonna walk you through the what the alleged defense strategy is gonna be to fight the Mann Act, which is the lesser charge of all the charges against Diddy, the SEX trafficking for women selling themselves. Then we're going to give you guys what the alleged defense strategy will be for SEX trafficking under force, fraud, or coercion, which is the bigger charge. If we have time, I'll get to what the defense strategy is for RICO. But as you guys know, in the morning, I have limited time. I always have to watch the line to see when they're bringing us in. If I have a chance, I'll let you guys know their defense strategy for RICO. And I have some bonus information of how they're going to point their finger at the government, okay? They're going after Homeland Security and government and agents, all right? So we're gonna recap what we're gonna see today and for the rest of the week. I'm gonna let this ambulance go by. Okay, so today, which is Tuesday morning, we're going to see the defense. And by the way, put your questions in the chat. If they did like yesterday and they took us in maybe around 7:40 or so, I'll be able to have at least 10 or 15 minutes where I can answer some questions for you guys. So feel free to put your questions or statements or whatever in the chat and I will get to them, okay? So Tuesday, which is today, the defense team, Diddy's defense team, is still gonna have an hour to an hour and a half of cross-examination of Joseph, who is the prosecution's special agent that did the summary charts. We explained to you guys yesterday what summary charts were. Summary charts are pretty much kind of like an Excel spreadsheet of what all the videos, the freak off videos, the text messages, emails, invoices are all on a chart. They have an expert witness, not an expert witness. They have a summary. I can't remember what their technical name is. They're a summary witness where they're just putting everything together. Okay, so an hour and a half of cross-examination, and then the judge said yesterday they're going to give the jury a long break. I've been asking people what he means by that. I don't know if he's just going to wrap the jury at the end of the day, at the end of the cross-examination, or if he's going to keep them around. The reason why they're taking a long break is because the defense is going to have the opportunity to put on their Rule 29 motion. We explained what the Rule 29 motion is. A lot of people were sounding off like, oh, that's normal. Every defense attorney has an opportunity to put on the Rule 29 motion. Yes, it is true. However, we still have to take into consideration that the judge could decide that the defense has a point with their motion under Rule 29, and maybe the judge will throw out some of the charges. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just letting you know what we're working on today. Okay, cross-examination of Joseph, the summary agent or the summary witness, and then the defense will put on their motion for Rule 29. The jury will not be in the room for that. Depending on how long it goes, that's why I think he's going to give the jury a long break, because he does not know how long that motion will take to go. It might take the entire day. For those of you who missed yesterday, I'll tell you quickly what Rule 29 is. Motion to dismiss the case before the case is put to the jury. What the defense will say is the prosecution has not met their burden to establish as a matter of law that Diddy has committed at least one or up to three of the charges in which he is being accused of. What does that mean? Oh, he's on trial, he's charged with RICO, for example. The defense is going to say the prosecution did not prove that there was any RICO violations or any SEX violations. They're going to say a lot of the testimony was hearsay, a lot of the testimony we poke holes in it. There's not enough to even bother going to the jury. That's what they're going to try. And like I said, like some people said yesterday, they are correct that this is something that's standard. Most defense attorneys will try to put it before the judge. And what it is basically is like, before it actually goes to the jury, you're giving the judge a chance to weigh in on the case, and the judge could render his verdict. 9 times out of 10, it's not likely to happen. However, if there is lack of evidence or lack of proof that the prosecution makes for the reason of their charges, he could throw it out. Now, a lot of people have said that the prosecution overcharged Diddy. Oh, there's a lot of people, just even in my own comment section, or if you see online, they're like, why wasn't this a DV case? Why weren't there state charges? What is going on? Why did they have to all the way go to RICO? Who knows? Maybe the judge might side with some of you and feel like, you know what, he maybe was overcharged. I don't see him throwing out all charges, but maybe the RICO, he might agree with the defense and say, you know what, I feel like RICO was a stretch, okay? So we really went into that yesterday. Go check out yesterday's wrap-up day. That I go into more depth about Rule 29. So back to the day, that is what we have on the docket for today, is Joseph and Rule 29. If it finishes up early, I guess they will go to what they have planned for Wednesday, which is the charge conference. What the charge conference is we spoke a little bit about this yesterday as well too. Charge conference is, all right, before the jury goes into deliberation, they're going to give them instructions, jury instructions, and they're going to give them a form. And on the form, it will say, okay, jury, you heard of RICO. Here are the 35 predicate acts. We are saying that Diddy broke 6 of these acts. There's bribery, there's arson, there's this, there's that, blah, blah, blah. Do you agree that, he was guilty for this? You believe he was not guilty? And they'll have like a kind of like a questionnaire, kind of. Whew, the sun is like perfect today. I'm a little bit of shade and a little bit of sun. What up? Sorry, I just got distracted, telling myself in the camera. So the jury may, so the jury will have to fill out the questionnaire, and it gives both the defense and the prosecution a window into why the jury found guilty or not guilty. Some of these things can also be used in appeal court, okay? So the defense has their chance on Wednesday or later on today, depending on what happens with Rule 29, to say what they want the jury to hear and what they want the jury charges to be, etc. So that is on pace to be discussed Wednesday. Then Thursday, we will hear closing arguments. So closing arguments, each side said they would like around 4 hours each. So as you guys know, the prosecution goes first. So if we start at 9, that takes us to lunch or maybe a little bit after lunch. And then it will be Diddy's defense. And that's what we're going to get into now. What is Diddy's defense strategy? I'm going to break that down for you. Now, the judge did say yesterday that he would be willing to keep the jury here longer if both sides could maybe tailor their closing arguments a little bit so we could fit it both in one day. I think that would be the responsible thing. Yesterday we talked about at length on all of our 3 lives how fed up the jury is, how tired they are, they're fighting, sleeping. 2 jurors fell asleep out cold yesterday. Not like, oh, I'm a little tired, like this. Gone. You know when you're like trying to keep your head back, trying to keep like totally gone. And one was just like, my advice to the prosecution and the defense would be, guys, come together, put it all in one day, talk to the judge and say, listen, we know court is from 9 to 3. We have stayed here till 5:30 at times. I'm sure the jury would love to do it. And everything gets wrapped up on Thursday. The jury comes fresh on Friday and they start deliberations on Friday. Meaning that we could, not likely, but we could have a verdict on Friday. Juries have been known to, when they get the case before a weekend, to try to rush it out and just, get their weekend themselves and then not come back on Monday. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is possible. I spoke too soon about the sun because now I have too much sun in my eyes. Jeez, yo. Hold on, let me move back a little bit. So there we go. Need a little bit of shade here. Okay, so that is the week, okay? That is the plan for the week. So let me go into some inside scoop information about Diddy's defense, okay? Another thing a lot of people were talking about yesterday is how could Diddy make a decision with him and his defense team to not put anybody on the stand, anybody not coming to Diddy's defense. There's three kinds of people or 3 kinds of witnesses. There could have been a character witness, which is speaking to his character. I work for Diddy. He's a good person, or I know him, or a family member. Character witness, an expert witness, which I think they should have put on, but that's up to them. But an expert witness is somebody like Don Hughes, who came and talked to us about trauma bonding, talked to us about why a woman would stay in a relationship with a man who's putting hands on her, why they wouldn't leave right away. That lends to the fact that people have said, why is Cassie staying? Why is Jane staying? They had an expert witness explaining to you the mental reasons why things like that happen. We all thought Diddy's defense team would at least find their own expert witness to come and rebut that or give us another theory. As a mental health advocate myself, the thing about mental health is that it's not like cancer. You can't test it. It's not yes or no. It's a theory. It's a kind of like a broad explanation. So again, I'm not Diddy's defense team, and they must know why they are doing this, but there'll be no expert witnesses. And another thing they could have put on is a former employee that has a positive story to tell. We heard about, well, technically Cassie was an employee because she was an artist from Bad Boy. We heard about Brendan Paul, and you did hear about, people working for him, KK, etc., that they had to go out and buy DRUGs, that they were overworked. They could have put on an employee that says, you know what, I worked 8 hours a day. He was an amazing boss. I never had to get him DRUGs. I learned a lot from him. He was et cetera, et cetera. But like I said yesterday, and I'm not going to get into it again today, what the defense did is take a great case that the prosecution put on, and I feel like they put on a great case. However, the defense poked enough holes and flipped some of the prosecution's witnesses and had them say things that were positive for Diddy. Had the prosecution's witnesses say things that these 3 kinds of characters would have said. Brendan said he enjoyed working with Diddy. He said he liked working there. He said he learned a lot from him. He said that he didn't see, Jane feeling coerced. He said that when he was there setting up for freak-offs, Jane looked like she wanted to be there. And after, it looked like she was happy that, after her experience. So they were able to flip some of the prosecution's witness. That is one of the reasons, not even a theory, but one of the reasons why they feel they don't have to bring their own witnesses, okay? Now, something to note, and they're gonna put this in the jury charge, The defense does not have to make a case for themselves. Coming to court, it is the prosecution's job to put a case on against Diddy. The only thing Diddy has to do is argue the case and cross-examine. I mean, arguably they don't even have to do that, but that would just be crazy. So Diddy's team does not have to put on a defense. And like we said yesterday, it almost seems like they come off stronger not putting on a defense. This is a strategy. They come off stronger saying, they didn't even put enough here for me to argue. They didn't even prove, forget even beyond a reasonable doubt, they didn't even prove enough of their case for me to even bother putting something on. I just want to give it to the jury and get out of here, because the jury could tell even on their own without us even putting on witnesses that this is frivolous and this case has no merit. That is pretty much what Rule 29 is saying, but Rule 29 is to the judge. Them putting on no defense and just going to the jury is their way of telling the jury indirectly, I feel super confident. I know that I'm innocent. This is just the government coming at me, okay? So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit more detail. So on one of the lesser charges, which is the SEX trafficking which is somebody, Diddy hiring somebody for SEX across state lines, the Mann Act, okay? This was an act that came into law like over 100 years ago, where you could not hire somebody. For example, I'm in New York City right now. If I hire somebody in the state of Pennsylvania to have SEX with, and I transport them, I put them on a plane coming here, that's a violation of the Mann Act. That act alone, people think is ridiculous. 100 years ago, you know, just go Google and research the Mann Act and why they put that in. Now with the world that we live in and people are traveling back and forth every day, a lot of people feel like the Mann Act should be something that should be looked into, okay? So one of the things they are gonna say, which is, I feel a little bit hard to get over. So one, they're gonna try in their closing arguments to argue against the Mann Act. But another thing they're gonna try to do is they're gonna try to say that these workers were not SEX workers, that they were just there for their time. They were just there for the experience. Cowboys for Angels is an entertainment company. They're gonna say that we paid them for their time, that we paid them for being dancers to entertain us. And it just so happened that after they did their quote unquote work, after we had SEX, but they weren't paid for SEX. They're gonna say that they were just paid entertainment. Now, people have been trying to get over on this kind of defense when it comes to these kind of charges. That is a stretch, if you ask me. We have seen the freak-offs, we have seen the details, we have seen the text message between Jane and Cassie, and we know that, you know, they're not saying, you never seen a text of like Cassie saying, hey, what's going on Friday night? Why don't you come and dance for me? That's all I want. No, she's asking for pictures of the D, she's asking for this, and they're talking about everything that's going on. So I feel like that will be a hard case to make during closing arguments. But I just want to let you guys know again about strategy. The sun keeps on trying to follow me around. Just want to let you guys know about strategy. It could be that Diddy's defense team is kind of conceding to this lesser charge. And that is why, you know, sometimes where it's like, okay, there's these 3 charges or 5 charges, and you know, you make a little bit of a weak case for this Mann Act violation, but you make stronger for the force, fraud, and coercion and RICO, and it makes the jury feel like, you know what, we saw that CNN tape, we know he's not a good guy, we know he's freaky, we know we don't really like him as a person, so let's just charge him on the Mann Act, no problem, at least he'll get some time, at least he's found guilty, but we don't think there's force, fraud, or coercion or RICO. I think that that's the defense strategy. That would be the only explanation by trying to say, oh, we're just hiring them as dancers, because we know, you know, and they know that is a weak defense. However, it could be a strategy of just kind of throwing them, you know, throwing them what do you call the expression? Like throwing them a ball or just giving you something so at least you feel vindicated. Now, whenever people talk about this lesser charge, the Mann Act charge, a lot of people say, hey, that's still a charge, that's still a conviction. He can go to jail up to 10 years. I spoke with somebody yesterday to get a little bit more information about that, and here is the truth behind that. Yes, there is a maximum. I think the maximum is 10 and the minimum is like 2 or 3. Now, we don't know what the judge will do if he gets found guilty for this, and he probably will get found guilty for this, but it will be up to the judge to sentence. And normally, somebody that would get 10 years for violating the Mann Act, would be somebody who they found like, let's say like, you know, in a basement somewhere, and there's like 50 girls in the basement, and they literally have a sex trafficking ring where there's multiple people. That's not the case. With Diddy, it's Jane and Cassie, 2 girls. So it would be very, very prejudicial for the judge to say, all right, you've been found guilty of this lesser charge, I'm gonna give you the maximum. On what grounds would you give him 10 years, where there would be case studies of somebody who got 10 years, which is maybe like their second offense, or maybe they got caught with 50 girls somewhere or multiple women, all right? So yes, he can get found, and he probably will get found guilty for that, but at sentencing, pretty much legal experts say that he probably will get off with time served. Remember, Diddy has been held for close to a year. He was arrested, what, September the 23rd or 27th, something like that. We're in July, so July, August, 10 months. If the judge sentences him for 2 years, he could just get off on time served. And by the way, that would be a huge fail on the prosecution side. They like to throw some lesser charges in just to keep up their success rate. A lot of people are like, oh, don't play with the prosecution. They have a 96% success rate. Yes, they have a 96% success rate because they throw smaller, lesser crimes that it's almost impossible to beat, and then they'll throw in a RICO. So technically, if Diddy gets found for this Mann Act charge, the feds will have a technical win, but we will all know that if Diddy gets off and he goes home, it will be a win. Just making sure to be clear, I'm not on either side, I'm just giving you guys the facts, okay, of how things work here in court. So let me just try to run away from the sun. All right, there we go. Okay, so that is Diddy's defense strategy when it comes to the lesser sex trafficking charge. Now let's move on to the sex trafficking, force, fraud, or coercion. That one is the bigger charge, longer sentencing, okay? Now, they are going to have to really find a way to explain to the jury what happened on that CNN videotape. That is a huge piece of evidence in closing that they're gonna have to try to find some way to debunk that. Try to find some way to get into the jury's mind to say, that CNN video that you're seeing, that is a boyfriend and a girlfriend having an argument. That is Cassie looking in Diddy's phone. She maybe was putting hands on him in the hotel room. This was not him trying to drag her back into a freak off, because if it is, that would be sex trafficking under force, fraud, or coercion. So they have to do their best to debunk that. Another key piece of evidence, if you believe it, is remember when Cassie said that she was on the flight coming home, I think it was from LA, and he showed her a video and he said, hey, I want to do a freak off tonight or this week. And she's like, no, I'm not in the mood. And he showed her the video and was like, yo, if you don't do the freak off, you see this video here, I'm going to give it to the public. I'm going to put it out. That would be sex trafficking under force, fraud, or coercion. So that's why Cassie is the key witness. That's why Cassie is the charge that people think that he will be found guilty for those two reasons. The CNN tape, not for putting hands on her, but the fact of grabbing her to bring her back. You're going to have to get in one or all of the jury's head to convince them that that was just a normal, domestic argument between a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Or the jury might say, nah, man, that was during a freak off. He was trying to grab her back. That's guilty. So, and then there's also the flight. Two big things, two big hurdles. That's the thing I'm going to listen for the most when it comes to closing arguments from the defense. Something that somebody said to me yesterday, which I thought was an excellent point, and I want you guys to really listen to this. The prosecution, they only have to prove that Diddy sex trafficked under force, fraud, or coercion to Cassie or Jane one time. A lot of people are, oh, they had freak offs, she loved it this time, she loved it that time. Let's say they did 100 freak offs. Let's say 99 of them she loved and 99 of them she organized herself, Cassie or Jane. And we have text messages saying that she was into it. If the prosecution can just prove one of those times out of the 100 that they didn't want to, and Diddy, under force, fraud, or coercion, had them do it, that is grounds to find somebody guilty. And I thought that was a really good example to kind of really just strip everything down. Yeah, she loved it, she loved it, she loved it. Yeah, well, what about that one time Jane said that she was in the house and Diddy was putting hands on her, and she said that, remember the time where he broke down all the doors and she ran outside and she came back in and he's like, yo, take this DRUG and go outside, don't ruin my night. That night alone is enough to convict him for SEX trafficking under force, fraud, or coercion. Again, that is testimony. There's no direct evidence. There's no video. There's no audio. You'll have to believe Jane. The same thing like Cassie on the flight. You have to believe her that Diddy did show her phone and did show her the video and said, yo, if you don't do a freak off tonight, again, one time. And here's the analogy that the person said to me. It was super good, super brilliant. Just imagine if somebody said to you, oh, I only tried to unalive somebody one time, or actually only unalived somebody one time. One time is enough. You got to think about it like that. Because this is XCX and because they were in a relationship, we look at it like, oh, one time they had an argument and she may have kind of not been into it. But if you look at it as like unaliving somebody, just imagine somebody coming up in court and be like, yeah, I only tried to unalive somebody just once. You would put them in jail. One time is one time too many. I thought that was a really, really strong point, okay? I think they're gonna get ready to call us. I'm gonna skip Rico. I'll get back to what I hear the defense is gonna be at lunch. Are they calling us in? But I really wanna get to some of these bonus things. So I really wanna know what you guys think about it. But, sorry, one sec. Okay, no, they're not calling us in. So yeah, we'll get back to Rico at lunch, or I'll try to get it at the end of this. Here are some other strategies that the defense is going to say in their closing arguments. Just want to remind you guys, everything that I've been telling you about the strategy for the Mann Act and also for the SEX, force, fraud, and coercion, Diddy's team is not putting a witness on the stand, but whoever does the closing arguments, that will be the testimony. That will be like Diddy testifying. That will be the witness. It all is going to come down to the defense closing arguments. They have 4 hours to talk about everything that I just said to you. And like I said, this is some insider information on the things they are going to say during closing arguments to create a reasonable doubt. Remember, it has to just be a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof is on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why they had to put on so much testimony. The defense just has to create a reasonable doubt. They just have to make you think, was Jane telling 100% truth when she said, yo, go and take this DRUG and don't ruin my night? Was she 100% honest? I don't know. Was Cassie 100% honest on that flight? Could she just be doing this for money? Could she just be doing this because she was upset at him? That is what the closing, that's what the closing argument is going to come down to. Now, let me tell you a quick, some other bonus things that they're going to throw into their closing arguments. I really want to know what you guys think about this. One, they're going to bring up that the police are policing our bedrooms. We have heard this a bunch of times where it's, hey, the government that I'm paying for, the government that is taking my tax dollars, the government has no place in the bedroom. That is one of the things, the key things that the defense strategy, Diddy's defense team is going to bring up. Do you want the government in your bedroom? This case could bring up a precedent where the government, they feel like they could just get into your business. I feel that will work on a lot of people because we definitely heard that before. Another thing they're going to say is, we heard a lot of the summary witnesses and a lot of the raids, the feds used Homeland Security and other government agents. They're going to try to propose to the people, the jury, and say, listen, these are your tax dollars. There's a bunch of stuff going on in the world right now. Do you actually think this is a good use of taxpayers' money? Taking all these Homeland Security agents and having them raid Diddy's house, go through SEX tapes, go through text messages, go through receipts, and all of this for this one guy who's a billionaire that you might not like, and you saw him putting hands on his girlfriend, and yes, it's bad, but do we need to spend millions and millions and millions on dollars on being in somebody's bedroom? That is what they're gonna try to convince the jury. And I also did hear that they might even bring up the Iran and Israel issues that are going on right now, and they might say, look at everything that's going on in the world, and we have our government resources spending time watching freak off videos, watching time going through Diddy's text messages. They should be dealing with real problems, real world issues. Again, these are not my ideas, these are not my views. This is what I heard that Diddy's defense team is going to use in their closing arguments, okay? Yes, you might hear about Iran and Israel in closing arguments. Shocking, I know, but it is true. There's two more things. They were, Oh, they're going to say, I've talked about this before, they're going to try to throw in the fact that the government was just after Diddy all of this time. You guys know about the Diageo thing, where Diddy was gaining some ground when he was trying to sue Diageo, that the government was just trying to quiet down Diddy. They didn't like how he was out here kind of, being a brash billionaire and, trying to, create his own lane and trying to get too much power. They are going to try to say, the government has been after him and trying to get him, and this is the only thing they could find, and this is the only reason why they have this case. Get the government out of our bedrooms, put our resources to other things instead of going after a billionaire. And the last thing they're gonna say to prove that the government is really just out there trying to harass Diddy, you guys remember when the government held a press conference and they were talking about baby oil, and we come to find out now at the end of the trial that this baby oil was just baby oil. There was nothing in the baby oil, there's nothing to do with the baby oil, and the government and the defense is literally just gonna say, this is a clear-cut indication that the government was after Diddy for whatever reason, whether it be Diageo or whatever reason, a black billionaire or whatever, trying to embarrass him and make him off his pedestal. The government didn't want to get him didn't want to see him as powerful. They have a press conference and they're talking about baby oil. It's not illegal to carry, it's not illegal to buy 1,000 bottles of baby oil. It's not illegal to have thousands of bottles of Astroglide. Is it weird? 1,000%. But is it illegal? It is not. And it comes to find out that there was nothing, it was not laced, there was nothing wrong with the baby oil and Astroglide, all right? So these are kind of some of the bonus things, again, that they're going to say in closing arguments, all right? I was working hard for you guys last night. I stayed up very, very late getting you all that information. This is what I have heard will be along the lines of closing arguments for the defense team, all right? Let me get to some of your questions because they're about to call us in 5 minutes, and I hate when I'm on something and then I lose you guys. Hi, Trent. Getting the tea for us today. You always are doing a great job reporting. Thank you so much, Felicia. Somebody said a drink break. Yeah, coffee break. Whew. Yesterday, I was outside with my water, taking like water breaks, and I had my patting down. Praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus. I was like a preacher yesterday. All right, here you go. Good morning, Trent. Good morning from Tampa. How you doing? I scrolled all the way up to try to not forget anybody today. I really don't see how they can't find him guilty at least 2 of the charges. Hey, you have a right to your own opinion. I don't think they overcharged him. I just think that they came for him full force with more than, like you said, direct evidence. With more like direct evidence. Yeah, totally agree. I think he's gonna walk. This case has been BS. See, every time I go into the comments, you get one person saying, no, he's totally guilty. Another person says that he's gonna walk. The feds need to make one charge stick, admit they wasted taxpayers' money. There you go, right here, talking about the government. And I think this was even before I started talking about the government. A lot of people, I think, will be on Diddy's side, even though they think that he is guilty and they think that he might not be a good person. They look at it as, yo, what is the government doing with our tax money? What are the government doing with our resources, and why are they in our bedroom? Diddy feels like we're out. Diddy feels like we're out of it. Okay, let me go. Jurors are sleeping because they are fed up, 1,000%. And it's like I told you guys yesterday, even one of the guards that have been working in this courtroom for the past 25 years, he said that he's never seen such a boring and more repetitive case in his whole 25 years. So just imagine how the jury feels. Imagine how we feel. It's tough, you know? Anyways, baby oil versus the U.S. government. That's hilarious. I'm not going to say that. Somebody I love baby oil. Ashley Larry. Hey, Trent, maybe there was no one that could speak up kindly about him in their employee that would have been strong enough. I really doubt that. Diddy has 1,000 employees. You mean to tell me that there's nobody that they could find to put on the stand to say something nice about Diddy? That's impossible. Diddy is a multi-billionaire. He could have found somebody to put on the case, to put on the stand. What I said yesterday is not so much that I don't think they could have found somebody to say something nice about him, but once you go on the stand, you're subject to cross-examination, and the defense poked holes in the prosecution's witnesses. So I think even if they would have found somebody to say something about Diddy, they're subject to cross-examination, and they could have maybe messed up and slipped. It's very, very difficult when you're on the stand there, and I think maybe they just didn't want to take the risk because they feel like they're in the lead and they feel like they have some jurors convinced. It's really not that they couldn't find anybody. That's what I was thinking, that they probably couldn't find anybody. No, I don't think that. Diddy could have found somebody and paid them. Yo, let me give you a couple of G's to say something nice about me. Come on, you're crazy? This is Diddy we're talking about here. The prosecution had no witnesses with direct observations or knowledge of criminal activity. I have said that repeatedly. I've talked about circumstantial, trying to get out of this sun, y'all. I've talked about circumstantial evidence and the difference between direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. I feel like the text messages were really good. Testimony, of course, is one thing. Text messages were really good, and they corroborated a lot of those text messages. So I would have, yes, liked to have seen the government maybe do some wiretaps, maybe do some surveillance videos and catch some things on video. But as people have said multiple times in the comment section, very, very hard to do. Cassie, Jane, maybe like slip a wire on them or whatever. Very, very difficult and very, very risky. But of course, yes, that would have given the prosecution a more sound case where we're not here thinking like, hey, what happened on that CNN video? What actually happened in the bedroom? Yeah, did he really say this on the flight? Like I said a bunch of times, I would have loved for Cassie to just like hit the record button on her phone, you know what I mean? Or like, something's happening, or Jane, like do something. It would have been great, and then we wouldn't have to be here deliberating like, is it possible or not possible? Okay, I think they might be bringing us in now. Hold on, I have a super chat, let me read this quick. Good morning, coffee on me, thank you very much. Mess Ranch, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, they're about to bring us in, guys. I gotta go, all right? Love y'all, thank you so much. I'll get to more questions at lunch. I'll be around 12, 1 o'clock. Peace.